What happens when a left-leaning professor tries to publicly humiliate a student she doesn't like, only to discover he's a genius with an IQ of 170? Well, she picked a fight with Barron Trump. By the end of this story, your jaw will be on the floor. At one of the most prestigious universities in the United States, the advanced calculus course, taught by Dr. Emily Carter, was famous for two things: her brilliant mathematical mind and the political slant that seeped into her lectures. When students walked into the auditorium that morning, they sensed something different in the air. Instead of the usual complex equations on the board, Dr. Carter had written a single sentence as the day's main topic: a balance of priorities and academic goals. At the back of the room, sitting quietly, was a tall young man with a calm face, dressed in a sharp black suit. Few knew him personally. He was reserved and rarely spoke, but everyone knew his name: Barron Trump. What they didn't suspect was that beneath his composed exterior lay a mind capable of leaving anyone speechless, a rare genius with an exceptional IQ. That day, something would happen that would forever mark the history of Dr. Carter's course. The atmosphere was charged as the professor began the class. What should have been a lesson on derivatives, integrals, or infinite series quickly turned into something else entirely. "Math matters," she began, "but we need to make room for certain social discussions that have become urgent." Some students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They hadn't expected advanced calculus to take this turn. As the minutes passed, it became clear that the class was a platform for Dr. Carter to air her political views and critique the system. Barron, with a striking calmness, stayed in the back, watching. Perhaps he already sensed what was coming and was ready to respond at the right moment. Instead of proving formulas, Dr. Carter projected a slide full of statistics about inequities in the hard sciences. Pointing to charts on gender disparities, she tossed out lines that felt like direct jabs at certain students. Some people think they're here purely on merit, but they've benefited from 1,000 advantages, whether from family status or other privileges. Her gaze cut through the room. Everyone caught the hint. Though she didn't name names, it was obvious she was targeting specific students, including Barron Trump. Tension spread. Barron's hand, which had been resting on his leg, rose to ask a question. Hardly anyone dared interrupt Dr. Carter, known for her rigor and commanding presence, but Barron, with a steady posture, raised his arm and waited. The professor pressed on with her points, ignoring the raised hand. She stressed the need to rethink teaching methods and claimed some students were in the class not by merit, but by family influence. The air grew heavy. Some students realized this wasn't just a lecture. It was a political showdown disguised as academia. Finally, unable to ignore the raised hand any longer, Dr. Carter sighed and addressed him. "Yes, Mr. Trump. Any objections to what I'm explaining about privilege and education?" All eyes turned to Barron. Subtly, a few students pulled out their phones to record, unnoticed by the professor. They sensed something big was about to happen. In a low, perfectly clear voice, Barron spoke. "Professor, I know inequalities exist, but many of us chose advanced calculus to dive deep into math, whether for research or application. Don't you think cutting essential content could hurt everyone's education, including those who need it most?" Some students nodded, relieved someone had the guts to say what they were thinking. Dr. Carter crossed her arms. "Do you really think you know more than I do about how to teach math? After all, you come from a wealthy family with tutors and private schools. Maybe you should reflect on your unearned advantages first." Barron's response wasn't hostile. "I acknowledge I've had resources, but that's exactly why I think we should keep standards high, so everyone, no matter their background, can learn as much as possible without relying on privilege. Lowering the bar doesn't fix anything. It just hides the problem." A murmur rippled through the room. Dr. Carter felt cornered. She needed to push back and went straight for it. "Well, Mr. Trump, maybe we can test your high standards. Instead of just talking, how about you prove you've mastered this precious advanced calculus?" With that, she turned to the board, and with firm strokes wrote a massive expression involving multiple integrals and a complex series that wasn't even part of the official syllabus. A gasp of awe echoed through the auditorium. Most students didn't even know the tools needed to tackle something that advanced. With a triumphant smile, Dr. Carter said, "How about you solve this now, in front of everyone, if you're so passionate about mathematical rigor? Or would you rather keep talking about your family's advantages?" Everyone expected Barron to hesitate, stumble, or back down in fear. Instead, he stood up unhurriedly, adjusted his jacket, and walked to the board. There was something different in his stride, a confidence that wasn't arrogance, but came from someone who knew exactly what he was doing. He turned to the professor and asked politely, "Do you prefer the traditional method, which takes up a lot of space, or can I use an alternative approach inspired by some direct readings of Euler's original works?" The question sounded almost absurd to those present. Euler, mentioned so casually. Dr. Carter blinked, caught off guard. "You read Euler, in German?" She sounded skeptical. "Yes, and some supplementary texts from Leibniz's originals. Translations sometimes ruin the elegance of the proofs," Barron explained without a hint of arrogance. "But if you'd like, I can solve it both ways to make it easier to follow." Silence took over. Even the professor, who'd set up this stage to embarrass him, felt her face flush. 2 or 3 students started recording discreetly with their phones. Then Barron began. He started with a classic derivation, speaking calmly, step by step. "To tackle this system, let's first consider a coordinate transformation." He outlined a sequence of calculations most didn't even know existed. If the expression was intimidating to the class, to Barron it seemed like a fun puzzle. Between steps, he glanced at the room to ensure they could follow. "Notice how the real and imaginary parts split when we define the series expansion. This reduces the initial problem to an integral that, with Feynman's technique, becomes much simpler." Dr. Carter held her breath, trying to keep up. It was clear he was operating at a level far beyond the course. In 10 minutes, he solved the complex expression. The board was covered in neat annotations, arrows, and notes. The audience blinked in disbelief. Then Barron erased half the board and said, "Now I'll show the alternative route, based on Leibniz's writings, which cuts some steps for anyone interested in more elegant methods." The amazement grew. The second approach was even shorter and reached the same answer. When he finished, Barron turned to the class. "Clear enough, guys? If there's any confusion, we can go over each step." Half the students sat with their mouths open. The other half clapped quietly. Some muttered shyly, "Holy crap, I've never seen anything like that." No one, except Dr. Carter, dared say more. Still flushed, she tried to save face. "Well, it's obvious you've had access to studies beyond our curriculum, but that doesn't disprove my point. Your family and tutors must have heavily shaped your learning." With the same calm, Barron replied, "I've had resources, yes, but that's not the main issue. If schools lower their rigor, the students who lose the most are those who can't afford extra studies. We should keep standards high to push everyone." She tried to regain control. "So you're defending an elitist advanced calculus class? Why not make room for social issues?" Barron took a breath. "We can discuss social topics. They're important, but not at the expense of core content. I'd suggest a path where math or any knowledge isn't sidelined or replaced by activism. If we want effective public policy, we need solid math skills to analyze data, make projections, and so on." The audience, used to the professor's stern tone, realized this debate, far from humiliating Barron, had turned into a valuable lesson for everyone. Then the department chair, Professor Daniel Hayes, known for supporting Dr. Carter's causes, appeared at the door. He stepped into the auditorium and noticed the tense vibe. He asked quietly, "Any trouble here?" Dr. Carter saw a chance for backup. "I was showing the students the importance of weaving social issues into calculus teaching, but Mr. Trump thinks it trivializes the material. That's the disagreement." The chair looked at Barron. "Young man, understand that the university aims for a teaching approach that values more than just technical skills. We need to address privilege and equality." Barron stayed composed. "I agree we should talk about inequalities. My point is, we shouldn't push math education to the back burner. We could, say, use math to quantify disparities, analyze stats, propose solutions. But if we ditch dense content, how do we do good analysis?" The room noted the logic in his words. The chair, uneasy, argued that the priority was reforming the curriculum to tackle inequities. Barron countered, "Training without a strong base in data and methods won't solve anything. We'd have political rhetoric without scientific tools to test hypotheses. Wouldn't it be smarter to blend math with social goals?" With the whole class listening, Barron added, "When we lower rigor, We don't help the underprivileged. We keep them from reaching their full potential. The idea that if it's hard, it's elitist is wrong. If it's hard, we need more support, better teaching, not to ditch the challenge. Some students clapped. The chair scratched his head, at a loss. Dr. Carter tried to muster a final jab, but each of her points crumbled against Barron's clarity. Instead of a privileged kid defending elitism, he emerged as a genius, eager to include everyone in the pursuit of knowledge. With a sour look, she said, "I see Mr. Trump has a firm grasp of calculus. So what's your solution for those without your resources?" He gave a kind smile. "I suggest the university invest in tutoring and peer mentoring. Encourage strong students to teach others. We can use math as a tool for empowerment, not division. Policy, society, and math work together if we do it right." The silence that followed was different. A reflective pause, the kind that comes when you've just witnessed something extraordinary. Politics and education fused, not polarized. Class ended, but no one left. The room buzzed with energy. It had been the best discussion they'd seen in the course. The chair, cornered, nodded. "Maybe we should rethink this curriculum with balance. We can't toss out advanced content. Instead of turning calculus into a political platform, why not teach it as a way to critically analyze data?" Barron agreed. "Exactly. Math becomes a real tool for change without losing its cutting-edge science." The students applauded loudly. Dr. Carter, red-faced, had to admit a symbolic defeat. Hesitantly, she murmured, "Maybe I got carried away. I believe in social causes, but I might have overdone the approach." Barron smiled. "I respect your concern for injustice, Professor. I just think we shouldn't lose the heart of knowledge as academics." In a final gesture, he thanked everyone for their attention and slipped out quietly. No hero pose needed. That only boosted his classmates' admiration. The recordings some students made went viral fast. Within days, the videos blew up online with headlines like "Barron Trump School's Liberal Prof" or "Teen Genius Flips the Script on Calculus Indoctrination." Each outlet spun it their way, but the consensus was clear. Barron had shown extraordinary skill and composure under fire. His words sparked debates. Many professors, even those who disagreed with Donald Trump's politics, praised his insight for proving academic quality shouldn't be sacrificed for activism. It led to an internal review. They realized social topics could blend with hard sciences without watering down math rigor. His speech had ignited a vital conversation about teaching, politics, and meritocracy. Barron's attitude also inspired classmates. Once seen as the rich kid of a former president, sitting quietly in the corner, now students approached him for study tips. He ended up organizing study groups for those struggling with calculus, teaching clearly and showing his real goal was collective growth, not self-promotion. The incident stuck in everyone's memory. Dr. Emily Carter's attempt to humiliate Barron became a bigger lesson. Don't underestimate someone based on a privileged heir label, and don't ditch a field as crucial as math for any agenda. The final scene, solving that complex problem on the board with brilliance, became almost legendary inside and outside the school. At its core, it showed how true privilege, intelligence paired with hard work, can lift others up, not hold them down. It also proved education must prioritize rigor because that rigor lets people rise. If you believe in social justice, you don't help by lowering standards. You do it by offering chances to hit the highest level. For Dr. Carter, it was a reality check. In later interviews, she admitted she'd been too extreme mixing politics with technical subjects, and that Barron Trump taught her the value of keeping high scientific standards. Barron, meanwhile, kept his low-key life, acing classes, helping whoever asked, and staying humble. In the end, those who saw and shared the episode online noted that if the professor thought Barron's biggest asset was the Trump name, she learned his real strength was a 170 IQ and a character that didn't bend under pressure. If this story shocked you, give it a like, share it with friends, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. See you next time. And remember, intelligence with humility can overcome any ambush.